Let's just check again. I can't hear myself coming through, which is not very good. Why has it got that? Isn't that story? Drop. All right, another mic check. Mic. All right, another mic check. Okay, working. That's good. This is good. All right, so. Logitech webcam. Oops. I'm saying oops a lot, but I've got to get my camera going. I think it's working. Hi. Well, it's winter, just about. So, hence the cap. Oh, gotta just push the. Anyway, I wasn't going to disturb the internet or anything like that, but I got it. I came across this lunatic, this Christian who's doing Christianity right. You know, nobody else does it right, but he does. Anyway, that's not the point. The point was this video. He made this video, and I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna play the audio of it anyway. The video, essentially, there's one picture. You know, he's, and I'll put the snapshot up while the audio is playing. But there's no point in watching the video. It's just him, and his name is All for Christ, something like that. And we'll get to that in a moment. Now, once I put that video up, once I've played the audio of it anyway in the video, then maybe I'll open it up to participation. Before I do that, though, I'm going to run a Dawkins lesson on evolution, where he teaches evolution to kids. I guess religious kids or something like that from a religious school. I think a Christian school, but I'm not sure. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Now, as far as Hangouts are concerned, right now I'm streaming on my encoder from not using the YouTube encoder, using OBS. So as far as Hangouts are concerned, while the audio is running, while Richard Dawkins is giving his little speech, his little teaching lesson to the kids, I will get a Hangout going and see how that works, integrating it into this encoding software, and we'll take it from there. So, yeah, what I'll do is I'm just going to put up a banner like that, say, while I play the audio, okay? So while I play the audio, like I say, I'm going to see if I can figure out the Hangouts part of it. If I can't figure it out, then it doesn't matter, because we've still got the second part, this guy, All for Christ. And I'll give you a little teaser. He had a homosexual event in the month of October of a certain year. You'll pick it up from there. But he's a preacher. He loves Jesus. He's talking about his homosexuality, and then he talks about how Jesus saves him from it all. You're gonna love it. So in the meantime, right now, we're gonna have Richard Dawkins give us a bit of a lesson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The universe is about 14 billion years old, and it contains billions of stars, and around many of the stars there are planets. On the vast majority of these planets, maybe even all of them except one, nothing very much goes on. There's nothing but rock and dust. If anything moves, it's just a bit of wind or a bit of volcanic action. But on one planet, and possibly only one planet in the entire universe, something very, very strange happened. And it started to happen about 4 billion years ago. And at the end of the process that began then, we have the stirring of movement, of life, complexity. Of course you know which planet I'm talking about. It's this one, and it may be the only planet in the universe that this has happened to. And now look around you, and you see animals hopping about, you see birds flying, you see fish and dolphins swimming, you see plants growing. Nothing like the rock and sand and deadness that you find on possibly all the other planets. What was it that happened? What's different about this planet? Nobody knew until the middle of the 19th century, when Charles Darwin finally worked it out. And now ever since then, Darwin wrote his book, The Origin of Species, 150 years ago, and ever since then we've gradually been filling in the details, and now it's absolutely certain that Darwin was right, and we now essentially understand why we're all here, what life is all about, what is the meaning of it all. It started with Darwin, but we've been building on it ever since. Now, I know that a number of people have difficulties with understanding Darwin's theory of evolution and with accepting it, with believing it, and I'm here to answer your questions about it if you have some. But I'd like to begin by asking whether any of you have some thoughts of your own, some opinions that you'd like to give me. We might even make a list on the board of ideas that people have, and that'll give us a sort of framework to talk about when we get started. Yes.
Do you find it a bit coincidental that this planet was in the exact right position, had the exact ingredients to make life?
Okay, that's a very nice point. Shall I write that down, or can we all remember that? I think we can remember that. What were you going to say?
Can you still believe in God and evolution?
Okay, thank you very much. Shall we have one more point, and then we might start talking about those? Or shall we just start now? Yes.
How does the evolution add to the meaning of life? What does it tell us that meaning of life actually is?
Okay. Now, the first question was, isn't it a bit of a coincidence that everything on this planet is exactly right? Yes, it is. Let's approach this from a slightly different angle. If it wasn't exactly right for our kind of life, then maybe it's a different kind of life that would have evolved here. Remember that life adapts through natural selection to fit the conditions in which it finds itself. And so to some extent you can say that if there's a planet in the universe that's capable of housing any kind of life at all, then it's the kind of life that will evolve on that planet, that can evolve on that planet. So if, for example, there's a planet that is very much hotter than ours, then the kind of life you'd expect to evolve would be life that's suited to a much, much hotter climate. So it's no accident that our kind of life is very well suited to live on this planet, because this is the planet that it's evolved on. Having said that, life itself has changed this planet a great deal. For example, this planet is now filled with oxygen, and we all have to breathe oxygen. But there wasn't any oxygen when Earth started. All the oxygen that's free in the atmosphere has come into the atmosphere because of plants and photosynthetic bacteria. So life has actually changed the planet, and life has also accommodated itself, has also adapted to fit the changed conditions. Originally, when life evolved, it was anaerobic. Have you heard that word? It lived under non-oxygen conditions. And later, when the plants filled the atmosphere with oxygen, life gradually evolved so that it no longer treated oxygen as a poison, which it would have been originally, but actually started to adapt itself to live in oxygen, until now we absolutely need oxygen. We can't do without oxygen. Now the second question was
about God and whether we can believe in both.
Can you believe in both God and evolution? Lots and lots of scientists do. And moreover, lots and lots of senior religious leaders believe in evolution. So if you were to talk to the Pope, or the Archbishop of Canterbury, or just about any bishop you can think of, you'll find that they all believe in evolution. They all, of course, also believe in God. And they will have various things that they'll say. They might say that maybe God started the universe off, and then evolution took over later, or something of that sort. There are some people who think that, of course they believe that evolution is true, because it obviously is, but they may say that God helps evolution along sometimes. Maybe there are some little difficult steps in evolution that God assists evolution. I don't believe that, but there are some churchmen who do believe that. And there are some very respectable scientists who are religious. When I say respectable scientists, they of course believe in evolution, because all respectable scientists do believe in evolution, but they also believe in God. And the third question was?
How does evolution put into the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life if you're...
What's the meaning of life on an evolutionary worldview? One thing to say is that the universe doesn't owe us any meaning. It could be that there is no meaning of life, and if so, that would be just tough. I don't think that, because I think that we can all make whatever meaning we choose to make, and each of you will have plenty of meanings in your own life. You'll be enthusiastic about some things, maybe some sport you play, maybe some books you read, maybe your love life, maybe your family life, maybe some of you love nature, some of you love music. These are all individual meanings that you can give to your life. That doesn't mean that life itself has one special meaning. It doesn't mean that we are here for any particular purpose, any more than mountains are here for a purpose, or rocks are here for a purpose. Rocks are just here. Rocks just happen, they are here. Mountains just happen, they are here. There is a sense in which life is just here. Life came about through the evolutionary process. But after billions of years of evolution, life forms arose that had big brains, big nervous systems, and we've got the biggest brains of all for our size. And so our brains are capable of developing purposes of our own. We, with our big brains, can think of our own purposes. We can aim at things in life. We can have a grand design for the whole of our life, which is the privilege that we enjoy because our brains are so big. And the reason our brains are so big is that evolution gave us big brains. Over a very, very long period of time, the brains of our ancestors got gradually bigger and bigger and bigger until they eventually became so big that they're now capable of enjoying music and poetry and mathematics and love and all the things that give our lives meaning and give our lives our own individual purpose. Okay, those are 3 points we've had. Now, does anybody else want to... Has anybody got an opinion they'd like to offer of their own? Perhaps some difficulty that you have?
Has evolution finished, or are we still going to change in the future?
Evolution goes much more slowly than we can imagine, because we live on a timescale of years and decades. And so, if you think about change during your own lifetime, no, you're not going to see that. If you look back in time, if you went back, say, 2 million years, you'd find that our ancestors had smaller brains than we did. If you went back 3 million years, smaller brains still. If you went back 6 million years, you'd find that our ancestors were the common ancestors of chimpanzees and presumably walked around on all fours. So when you think about what's happened in the last 6 million years, we've risen on our hind legs, and our brains have swollen up like a balloon. But remember that swelling up like a balloon took 2 or 3 million years. So you might say, if you come back in a time machine in 3 million years' time, would you expect to find that the brain was sort of huge, like a horrible monster in science fiction? In order for that to happen, it would be necessary that natural selection goes on favouring big brains. And that means that the biggest brains individuals among us are the ones who are most likely to survive and most likely to reproduce. Now, in the past, that must have been true, because otherwise we wouldn't have the big brains that we have. Over the past 2 or 3 million years, it must have been true that the individuals with the biggest brains were the ones who survived best, or at least who reproduced the most, had the most offspring. Is there any reason to suppose nowadays that the biggest brained individuals are the ones who survive best? Not that I can see. Or is there any reason to suppose that the ones with the biggest brains are the ones who have the most children? Again, not that I can see. So it certainly isn't clear that the evolutionary trends that we've seen for the past 2 million years are going to continue for the next 2 million years. Far from it. If you wanted to predict what was going to happen in the next 2 million years, you'd have to say to yourself, which types of us, which individual sorts of us are the ones who are most likely to have children? Obviously, some people have lots of children, other people don't. In order for evolution to occur by natural selection, it would be necessary that individuals who have the most children are genetically different from individuals who have the least children. And that difference has got to continue for 1 million, 2 million years in order for us to see a consistent change. Well, that isn't very likely, is it? Not obviously. If you ask, why are people born? Why are people here rather than not here? Maybe some of us are here because our parents were not very competent in the use of contraceptives. So maybe if there were a genetic tendency to be incompetent in the use of contraceptives, then that would be a natural selection pressure. If people who are bad at using contraceptives have certain genes, and people who are good at using contraceptives have other genes. You see, this is a kind of joking way of putting it, but this is the kind of thing we need to be looking at. Then we would have natural selection in favour of incompetence. Okay? Do you see that? I mean, that follows from natural selection. But in order for that to give rise to an evolutionary trend, it will be necessary that whatever it takes to be incompetent now will be the same as whatever it takes to be incompetent in 1 million years' time, or 2 million years' time. And since we live in a technological society, the very idea of using contraceptives as my sort of joke example, it implies that we're living in a technological society. And who knows what the technology will be like, not just in 1 million years, but in 50 years. And so it's pretty difficult to predict what's going to happen in future evolution. If we start thinking about going into outer space, then that might be another matter, because if we start sending colonies of people to live on Mars, to live in great big domes, greenhouses like the Eden Project on Mars, then whatever it takes to survive there might be very different from whatever it takes to survive here, and we could imagine a new race of people evolving in colonies on Mars. Do any of you have difficulties with Darwin's theory of evolution that you'd like to raise with me, because I might be able to help? Yes.
I just don't understand the way that, well, there's like this one cell that developed into this whole universe. Where did that one cell come from? That
Well,
organism.
the one cell you're talking about would have been the origin of life. It wouldn't have really been like a bacterium, because a bacterium is actually quite an advanced kind of cell. It probably would have been something rather simpler than a bacterium. I think it's fairly clear that once you've got a bacterium, then quite a lot could follow from that, because you've all learned about variation and competition and natural selection. And so from bacteria you could get sort of colonies of bacteria, you could get more complicated cells. From there you could get groupings of complicated cells. And have you learned about the origin of the eukaryotic cell? Okay, never mind about that. But I think your question is going further than that, which is to the origin of life itself. And that's a rather more difficult question, because the origin of life would not have been the origin of the first bacterium. Bacteria are too complicated to just suddenly come into existence. It must have been something simpler than that. And nobody knows what it was. It probably happened about 4 billion years ago. The first bacterial fossils appear a bit older than 3.5 billion years ago. So somewhere between 4 billion and 3.5 billion years ago, life originated. And by life in this case, I don't mean something as complicated as a bacterial cell. I mean something, it would have been a chemical event. It would have been the first self-replicating entity. By replicating, that means copying. You know, the thing about DNA is that it makes copies of itself. It makes almost perfect copies of itself. Not quite perfect, because you have mutation, and without mutation you couldn't have evolution, but almost perfect copies of itself. The origin of life, the thing that really triggered the possibility of life evolving, was a chemical event sometime in the early Earth, where a chemical arose which had the remarkable property of making copies of itself. And not necessarily exact copies of itself, occasionally copies of itself that were mistaken, so that there are 2 different or 3 different or 5 or 1 million different kinds, different versions of this molecule. And once you have different versions of a self-copying molecule, then you have the origin of competition, because some of them would be a little bit better at making copies of themselves than others, a little bit better at using the chemical resources that were around, which would have been probably in the sea. And then the whole process gets started. It's a slow, gradual bootstrapping process, starting from very, very simple beginnings and then working up to greater and greater complexity. Yeah.
I don't get the Big Bang.
You don't get the Big Bang?
Yeah, because there wasn't any scientists that time, so how do they know?
The Big Bang is what physicists tell us started the universe off. Physicists haven't always thought that there was a Big Bang. There was a time when quite a lot of physicists thought the universe had always been in existence. And the evidence mainly comes from cosmology, mainly comes from looking at the very, very distant galaxies. You know that the matter in the universe is divided not just into stars, but the stars are clustered into galaxies, which are huge kind of island universes separated from each other by vast distances of space. And what became apparent in the early decades of the 20th century is that the galaxies are all receding, not just from us, but from each other. The entire universe is expanding, moving apart. All the galaxies are moving apart from each other. And they told this by the redshift of, as you perhaps say, I won't go into that. Then there is very good astronomical evidence that the galaxies are moving apart. And when astronomers realized that, they worked out where they were moving apart from, and they worked out that the universe at one time had to be all in one place, all concentrated in one tiny area, and tiny little volume, which exploded at some point, and they could even date when that explosion was by extrapolating backwards from the rate at which the galaxies are expanding away from each other, retreating from each other. So they worked out that the universe began at a particular moment, and the estimate of when that moment was has changed from time to time because the measurements get better and better, and it's now thought to be somewhere around 14 billion years ago. Well, of course, you and I, who are used to asking questions like what happened before something, are immediately tempted to say, well, what happened before the Big Bang? And this is where I lose my physicist friends, because my physicist friends tell me there was no such thing as before. You're not even allowed to ask the question before. And I guess all of you are pretty baffled by that, and I am too. I don't understand why you're not allowed to ask that question. But what physicists will tell you is that time itself began at that instant in the Big Bang. Before the Big Bang, there was no time and there was no space. Time and space came into existence at that instant, that extraordinary moment called the Big Bang. Now, there are physicists who say everything I've just told you is true, but it's only true for this universe. This universe is all we know about. The universe in which we're in is all we know about. But there are some physicists who say that there is a multiverse, which is a kind of collection of billions of universes. It's like a sort of foaming, bubbling foam, and each bubble in the foam is one universe. And we are in one of those bubbles. And our universe, our bubble, began 14 billion years ago. But nobody knows anything about these other bubbles. And they can make conjectures about them, and those conjectures to some extent can be tested. But so it could be that there is a sort of meaning to the question, what happened before the Big Bang, but not within our universe, not within our local bubble. But as you've guessed, I certainly can't answer your question, and physicists can give a better answer than I can, because I'm a biologist, not a physicist. But I suppose the main lesson I'd ask you to take from this is that there's an awful lot that science doesn't know. Science is an open-ended procedure which feeds on its own lack of knowledge and works on its own lack of knowledge and tries to ask questions which at present are baffling. So never get the idea that science thinks it knows everything. Very, very far from it. There's an awful lot that we don't know. And if only we could come back in 500 years' time, we'd probably find great vistas of new stuff that we didn't know about. And in just the same way as if somebody came to our time from 500 years ago, they would have their minds completely blown by what modern science could tell them. Thank you very much. Now, I think you've all been writing down things you'd like to discuss, so who'd like to start by mentioning... Yeah, okay.
If it's a theory, why do we have to write in a fact in our GCSEs just to get a good grade?
Sorry, say that again.
If evolution's a theory, why do we have to write as a fact in our GCSEs just to get a good grade?
Well, I hope you don't do anything just to get good grades. But anyway, let's go on to the next question. What we're going to do is accumulate a list of questions, and then we're going to go through them all.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
What's your take on the missing link of the theory of evolution?
The missing link is the next question, okay? Somebody writing this down, and then we can deal with them all. Who's next? Yeah.
How can you prove evolution is 100% fact and God doesn't exist or anything like that?
Okay, well, I didn't say I could, did I? But anyway, let's write that one down too. Over there, yes?
Yeah.
I've heard that humans and apes have evolved from one species. Is it possible that they can evolve back into one big species?
Is it possible that humans and apes could evolve back into one big species? Okay, yes?
If we are taught about evolution and science, and then in RE we're taught about the way God created the world, who are we really meant to believe?
Very good question, yes, okay.
Yeah, the theory suggests that humans are going to evolve again, but all of our body systems and body parts all work perfectly in the moment, so why do they need to evolve again?
Okay, I don't know quite what you mean by evolve again, but let's write that one down too. Yeah.
What were Darwin's religious beliefs and how did they affect what he believed?
Okay, thank you. Yes, there.
Would it be possible for humans to evolve so much they become immune to every disease?
Interesting, yes. Nice one. Yes, there.
What came first, either plant or the oxygen?
What came first?
Plant or the oxygen?
I didn't hear that.
Plants. So we're talking about plants.
Oh, plants, yes, okay. Okay. Yes, you haven't had that.
If dinosaurs became extinct, do you think humans would become extinct as well?
99% of all species that have ever lived have gone extinct, so quite likely, yes.
You say that there's lots that science doesn't know, but that religion can fill in the cracks for. So, like, why do you not believe in religion?
Okay, thank you.
I don't understand how different skin colors and races form from evolution and from apes. I believe that God must have played
different skin colors.
Yeah, and races from
yes
apes and evolution.
Okay, have we got enough questions to be going on with now, do you think?
Fair debate.
Yes. Let's take the first thing there. I think it was a young lady over there asked about if evolution is a theory, why do we have to say it's a fact in order to get good grades in our GCSE? And I said, I hoped you didn't do anything just to get good grades in your GCSE. Has anybody got an idea how to answer her on that? What does it mean to say that evolution is just a theory? What does the word theory mean to anybody? Yeah.
Something's not being proven just based on theory, someone's knowledge.
So would you say that it's a theory that the Earth is round and not flat? Once upon a time, people thought the world was flat, didn't they? And there must have been a time when people said, well, I've got a theory that the world's round, and then other people said, well, my theory is that the world's flat, and finally the round theory kind of won out. So nowadays we call it a fact. Do you think that maybe theories go through a stage of being theories and then eventually they become facts when it becomes really rather silly not to believe in them anymore? Could that be a possible way to answer that question? Yeah. What does anybody think about that? Sorry? Yeah. What about you who asked the question? I mean, do you feel just a theory means sort of just as likely to be wrong as right, or do you think that it's possible for theories to be so well supported that they might as well be called facts?
They can be theory, but if it's a fact, then it's a fact.
Yeah.
What about your friends who you're talking about? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that what you said about the world being theories saying that the world was flat and then round, I agree that there were theories to start with, but we've found that there's evidence that it is round because people have gone into space. But with Darwin's theory, we haven't actually found evidence, so...
Okay, so what you're saying is that there's a distinction between going into space and actually looking at the world and seeing with your own two eyes that it's round.
Yeah.
Whereas the evidence for evolution is a bit more indirect than that.
Yeah.
Okay, now when a detective comes on the scene of a crime, and obviously the detective hasn't seen the murder, because if he had, he'd know. But nevertheless, the detective takes fingerprints and blood samples and looks at footprints and builds up a very, very strong case. And sometimes the case can be so strong, every bit of evidence points in that direction. Can't that sometimes be as good as, or maybe even better than eyewitness evidence? Because, eyewitness evidence can actually be wrong. People are mistaken. People think they recognize somebody's face when they don't. And there's quite a lot of good evidence that eyewitness evidence in courts of law is actually less reliable than for individual identification than DNA evidence, for example. Because DNA evidence is the equivalent of the evidence that evolution is true. Perhaps you haven't got a full impression of how strong the evidence actually is. It's as though you had 1 million 10 million different pieces of evidence, all pointing in the same direction, every single one of them pointing in the same direction. Nobody's actually seen evolution take place over a long period, but they've seen the after effects, and the after effects are massively supported by evidence, not just one bit of evidence, but hundreds, millions of bits of evidence, all pointing in the same direction. It's like a case in a court of law where nobody can actually stand up and say, I saw the murder happen. But yet, you've got millions and millions of pieces of evidence which no reasonable person could possibly dispute. That's sort of the way it is. And so, you shouldn't really take too seriously this thing about only a theory. Because in that philosophical sense, everything is only a theory. Let's go on to another one.
Talk about this one. It's a very, very good question. It's which I think, who is it who asked the question about religion? It's a very good question. I think it was the idea that we may be told something in science class, but we're also told something
in RE.
Yeah.
In RE.
Yes.
And you know, what am I supposed to do?
Okay, what does anybody think about that? You're told one thing in science class. Firstly, is it really true that in RE you're taught? I mean, are you taught Adam and Eve, or?
Yeah.
But I mean, what about other creation myths? What about the Hindu creation myth, for example? It's quite different. Do you get Adam and Eve instead? You get Rama.
We get everything. We sort of get.
You get everything. Okay. So you get lots of different creation myths, and they're all different from each other. So how do you decide which one to believe?
It's a decision.
Sorry?
It's a decision that we have to make.
You
We're
make
given
your
the
own
options,
decision.
and then we have
Okay.
to make.
So and how do you make the decision? I mean, does anybody else? Do some of you favour one creation myth? Do some of you favour the Rama creation myth, for example? Anybody favour that? What about the Adam and Eve ones? Anybody favour the Adam and Eve one?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And why do you favour the Adam and Eve one?
Because I was brought up to believe it.
You're brought up to believe it. Is that a good reason to believe something, do you think?
Yeah, because I went to church since I was little, so...
And it says it in the Bible.
Yes, but in the Hindu sacred scriptures, it says something different, doesn't it?
Yeah, but they're brought up to believe that one, then it
Yes. So you mean everybody should just believe what they're brought up to believe, even though they contradict each other?
Yeah, but people change when they get older. Like, some people will convert from being Hindu to Christianity.
Or from Christianity to being Hindu?
Yeah.
Yes. And you're happy about that, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a very satisfied position to be in. Yeah.
Keep that one going, but also related to evolution and the science.
Yes.
The science.
If you were to ask me why I believe what I believe, which is evolution, the very last thing I would say is because I was brought up to believe it. Absolutely the last thing I would say. I would say the reason I believe it is because here is the evidence. And I would say here's a book of evidence, and here's another book of evidence, and here's another book of evidence. And you can go and look at fossils, you can go and look at DNA evidence. You can look at the evidence of the geographical distribution of animals and plants. That's evidence. Saying that it says so in my holy book, what kind of evidence is that? Does anybody seriously think that the evidence of a book that was written a few 100,000 years ago by somebody who obviously didn't know anything, how could they know anything in those days? You're seriously saying that you take that more seriously than the evidence of fossils, the evidence of DNA, the evidence of geographical distribution, the evidence of comparative anatomy, comparative physiology. Does anybody really want to defend that position?
Well, I do. I believe in God because whenever I read a book, or in my religion, Islam, whenever I read a book or something, they got all the evidence that they wrote that time, but they didn't know, and they found out it's right now.
So they found out?
It's right now, so...
It's right now, so...
Everything they wrote is right.
For example, they wrote about dinosaurs and they wrote about...
No, they didn't write about these things, but they wrote like about how the baby develops, and no one knew that time. And they find it out now.
Yeah. So your criterion for agreeing with it is that science has found out certain things, and lo and behold you find that something like that was in your holy book. Why not just go to the modern evidence and say, well, that's what I believe because it is the evidence supports it. Why do you go back to your holy book and say, oh, well, I believe in the Holy Book because it said that. Why don't you just say, I believe in these facts because that's what the evidence shows. The evidence shows that babies develop in this way.
Richard?
Yeah.
But didn't Charles Darwin write a book which led on to people researching what he thought? So isn't that like the same as like religious books?
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying, isn't The Origin of Species by Charles Darwin, as it were, my holy book?
Yeah.
Yes. No, definitely not. And that, if there's one thing I'd like to get across to you, it would be that. There is no holy book of science. Science is constantly changing as new evidence comes in. Darwin was right about some things, he was wrong about some things. Darwin was completely wrong about genetics, for example. Everything Darwin said about genetics is pretty much flat wrong. And now we know that. Not that Darwin wasn't a great man, he was a hugely great man, but the new evidence that has come in shows that he was wrong about genetics. New evidence that comes in shows that Darwin was right about the fundamental idea that we are all cousins of everybody else. That's to say, all animals and all plants are cousins of each other. We are cousins of oak trees and kangaroos and wombats. Darwin said that, and he was right. By modern standards, maybe future science would prove that wrong, but I doubt it. But the point is, science is always moving on. There is no holy book. We don't say, I believe this because Darwin said it. We say, I believe this because all the evidence points in that direction. And as it happens, when we look back, we find that Darwin was the first to realize quite a lot of that evidence.
What do you think about it? That was a great question. What do you think about what Richard said?
Yeah, but what would you think if I've forgotten the question now.
Never mind.
Come back to me.
Okay, come back to it.
I was just going to say, you talk about the evidence of evolution, but there's one major evidence, which is the missing link. That's probably why people are so sceptical, because the missing link hasn't been found yet, which is why people are so sceptical of evolution.
By missing link, what do you mean?
Like, there's this so-called thing that's out there that relates humans to apes. That's like the closest link to humans, and the way that we've evolved from like a common ancestor of an ape.
Yeah. This phrase "missing link" used to be very fashionable. I'm actually rather astonished to hear anybody using it today. I mean, since the phrase "missing link" used to be used, we've now discovered a huge number of fossils. I mean, fossils are being dug up mostly, well, all in Africa, because that's where humans evolved. And we now have an enormous number of fossils, which are, in a very real sense, missing links between us and, or they're no longer missing, they are links between us and the common ancestor of chimpanzees and humans. There aren't any fossils as it happens. Let me just, can I draw on this? No. Okay, well then I'm sorry, the director's bossing me around and saying I mustn't explain that. You've got the common ancestor of humans and chimpanzees way back in time, and it branched like that. This is humans, this is chimpanzees. Lots and lots of links, lots and lots of no longer missing links.
All right. Okay, enough of Richard Dawkins. At this point, it would be more entertaining to actually listen to what's his name? Dawkins' theory? Dawkins' delusion. Yeah, that's the guy. Alright, let me just see if I can get rid of old Ricky Bicky. What happens if I do that? Ooh, stuff changes. Alright, let me double check, make sure it comes through on the YouTube screen, YouTube stream. Sorry. Alright, looks like it's good. It's all good. Alright, doody-doo. So let me get that going. Hello. Woo! There you are. Right, so we've listened to Richard Dawkins give a pretty good summary of how evolution works. Now, the whole subject of this YouTube is to listen to this guy. His name, he calls himself All for Christ, and then in brackets he has the name TheAllForXMan. No idea what that means. I came across this video earlier today, and after watching it and listening to it once, I responded to the creator, the video creator, and he actually responded back to me. I would like to, let me give you see if I can find what it looks like. I've got him here somewhere. Hold on a minute. I'm just going to get myself off here and see if I can find the guy. No. No. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll change that. I'll instead, oh, there it is. Alright, so there we go. That's the guy right there. His name is All for something or other. Yeah. What do you think of that guy? Alright, he looks harmless enough, right? Pretty much. Okay, so without further ado, oops, what's going on? I'm moving stuff around. Alright, without further ado, what I need to do is get the audio going.
I asked to testify of my experience with idolatry and movies, because there are some of you out there who don't know what will happen to you or how costly the trip will be if you play around with secular media and just popular culture, popular media, all the stuff that's coming out these days, especially if you're a Christian and you have one foot in the world and one foot in Jesus, which is a technical impossibility anyways. But to go on to the story, in October of 2013, it would have been, either that or very, very late September 2013, I got
okay, hold on a minute. So he says October 2013 or late September 2013. Remember that. And he got...
I asked to testify of my experience with idolatry and movies, because there are some of you out there who don't know what will happen to you or how costly the trip will be if you play around with secular media and just popular culture, popular media, all the stuff that's coming out these days, especially if you're a Christian and you have one foot in the world and one foot in Jesus, which is a technical impossibility.
1 foot in the world and 1 foot in Jesus, which is a technical impossibility, he's about to say.
Anyways, but to go on to the story, in October of 2013,
and one
would have been either that or very, very late September 2013.
Okay, there we go. Very, very late September and October 2013.
I got this movie caught my attention.
It went to a movie.
It was a Swedish movie that came out.
Swedish movie.
2008, and it was about vampires.
A Swedish movie about vampires.
Maybe some of you, just from me saying that, will know which one I'm talking about. Maybe some of you won't. I'm not going to say the name of it. But the point is that it caught my attention. I thought it was an enthralling story. So, and it seemed innocent enough to me for some stupid reason. So I decided to start watching it. I decided to look it up and do some research, go on the Wikipedia page, and read about it. I even looked up the book off of which the movie was based. I started doing some avid reading, and I started...
avid reading. Woo!
Watching YouTube clips of this movie on YouTube.
No, he doesn't say why he's so obsessed with this movie, but and to be honest, I don't think he even ever says so. But anyway, here goes.
YouTube, just over and over again. And little did I realize that as I was doing this, I was taking in demons. I was becoming slowly possessed by demons.
Okay, this is the excuse, okay? I was taking in demons, I was becoming possessed, or solely possessed, or whatever he says, by demons.
That issued out of this movie.
That issued out of the movie.
But I'll get into the specifics of that in a moment.
Uh-huh.
What happened was, as October progressed, I started noticing at night that I would be assaulted with these really unusual thoughts, and they were of a homosexual nature, even though I'd never entertained homosexuality in my life up to that point. And these things just increased and increased, especially at night before bed, and it became increasingly uncontrollable to the point where I was just being assaulted. And I'd be laying in bed just...
Okay, so uncontrollable to the point where he is being assaulted. Okay, these are demons in his head from the movie, which became uncontrollable to the point where he's being assaulted. Now, I'm not quite sure what that means. Let's see if he elaborates.
These thoughts just passing through my mind, and I'd be watching them go by, and I'd be like, what's all this about? I didn't even realize what was happening or why. I had no idea. I didn't connect two and two. So I just continued on with what I was doing.
Was he's lying in bed, and he didn't connect two and two, and he's really rambling. But let's just move on.
And with no second thought, no warning bells, no nothing, no consideration of how stupid I was being.
No warning bells.
But so anyway, so October kept on progressing.
What does that really mean? What happened to you? Did September keep on progressing, and August, and what the fuck?
And by about mid-October, I wouldn't have been able to tell you confidently what sexual orientation I was.
Did you hear that? By mid-October, I wouldn't be able to tell you confidently what sexual orientation I was.
Because by then, these things had taken root in my heart. And I became possessed, so...
And I became possessed. You can't make this stuff up, people.
So during the day, I wouldn't be able to control my thoughts or my...
During the day, this poor guy wouldn't be able to control his thoughts.
Actions.
Oh! Or actions.
Throughout the day, these thoughts would be passing through my head constantly, uncontrollably. It felt like my mind was an open house. Just the back door and the front door wide open, all the windows cracked, and just anyone and everyone could go in and come out as they pleased, and I had no control over what thoughts were passing through, as perverse as they were.
Okay, he's got no control of what thoughts are passing through. Now, these thoughts are perverse, but he's got no control of them. Perverse.
And there came a point where I just became so frustrated that I guess a part of me felt really defeated about it. So I just allowed these things to pass through my mind, and I didn't fight them off. I didn't do anything.
What do you mean you didn't fight them off? So you got these demons, you're possessed by demons, etc., etc. You didn't fight them off. Must be having a good time.
I just permitted them, and these things started taking root in my heart.
Again, he said it again. These things started taking root in my heart. What the fuck does that mean?
So at night I would be enjoying them as it became, and that obviously progressed.
Okay, at night I would be enjoying them as it obviously progressed. You can translate it as you like.
And just perpetuated the possession and just helped along the downward spiral that I was going into. And then it got to the point where I would start having dreams about engaging in homosexual activity.
He was having dreams, okay? Dreams about engaging in homosexual activity. Now let's just back up one moment, okay? he went to see this movie. It's a Swedish movie. It's about vampires. After watching the movie, he said he went with his sister and her boyfriend, right? After the movie, he researched the movie. He read about the movie. He watched many YouTube videos about the movie. And then he realized he was becoming possessed by the demons from the movie. Remember that. And now he's homosexual.
And I even had one dream at some point where I became a vampire and then had homosexual sex with another vampire.
Did you hear that? He has this dream where he's a vampire and he has homosexual sex with another vampire. Now, what exactly does that mean? Did he suck the other vampire's dick? Did he fuck the other vampire? Did the other vampire fuck him? Did the other vampire suck his dick? Like, what did they do? 69? Was it what the fuck was it?
And all this nonsense.
Oh, it was just all nonsense.
And by then I was getting really afraid, but I literally didn't even remember the whole issue.
Okay, he was getting really afraid. Now he's literally not remembering
with the movie. It never even
the whole issue during the movie
even crossed my mind. But October went on, and I was just getting
October went on and on. Remember this, right?
More and more frightened because this was so unusual and out of left field, in my opinion. So it got to the point where I just literally could not control myself, and I started wondering what is wrong with me, what's happening to me. So at the end of October, the very end of October, like maybe the 30th, and one more thing I should mention. Throughout the day and throughout the night, if I even tried to think a thought about Jesus, I could literally only hold a thought about Jesus Christ in my mind for maybe at most 2 or 3 seconds before it would get forcefully shoved out of the way and replaced with thoughts of perversion.
Okay. This is just golden. Okay, so he's trying to think about Jesus, but he can't think about Jesus for more than 2 or 3 seconds. Because after 2 or 3 seconds, his thoughts about Jesus are pushed aside by thoughts of perversion.
So I literally, I had no control over my thought process.
So you see, literally, I had no control over my thought process. None.
I was getting bombarded. I was getting assaulted. I was getting tormented.
I was getting bombarded, assaulted, and tormented.
And I was quite afraid.
And he was a little bit afraid, a little chicken.
Like I said, at the very, very end of October, just going into November, I went before the Lord in prayer one night.
One night out of the blue, I went to the Lord in prayer.
About this issue for the first time. I confronted it for the first time in prayer. I'm laying in bed, and I just said a really short, pathetic prayer. I simply asked the Lord to help me. That's all I thought I could do. So it wasn't even a really long, lengthy, long-winded, crying out prayer. It was just a simple, Lord, can you help me? I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. And then I went to sleep. And what happened was I had a dream that night where I was being dropped off at a movie theater.
Okay, now this gets this is where I think the excuse, he starts to backpedal and he tries to reverse engineer and basically he already has the conclusion of the reverse engineering he's already got, but now he's going to try and in some convoluted way explain how he reverse engineers himself out of this position.
And I went to go see a movie with my sister and her boyfriend at the time, and we went into the theater to watch some movie, nothing spectacular, nothing extraordinary, no movie of significance. And we're going to sit down.
No movie of significance, right? So, the first part of it, there were demons coming at him, right? Now he's analyzing the whole thing after he's had his homosexual 6-week perversion he probably went underground and started going to all the sort of gay clubs and gay nightclubs, or I don't know, using his apps on his phone, or what else could he have done? Website? Oh, who knows what else? But anyway, he probably did perverted things for 6 months, had a bloody good time doing it, and now he's feeling a little bit guilty and trying to explain himself out of it, explain his way out of it.
And then as the movie begins, I start noticing that as the movie is progressing, on the screen, little demons are popping their heads up everywhere.
Oh! Did you hear that? As the movie's progressing, little demons are popping their heads up everywhere.
Just more frequently and more frequently as
more and more of them. Woo! Demons everywhere.
The movie's progressing. The little grey imps with horns, black eyes.
Little grey imps with horns and black eyes, huh? Can you imagine how scary that is?
And fangs. Both
fangs too.
3 feet tall, and they're looking at the screen and mocking the audience and laughing, and they're disrupting the actual plot of the movie in the theater screen. Like, I'm watching the movie, and they're actually doing things that are not in script. It's like this whole demonic invasion into the film was not planned. This wasn't...
Okay, demonic invasion into the film that was not planned, and he's sitting there with his sister and brother-in-law, or sister and his sister's boyfriend, watching the movie, and he's seeing these demons. He hasn't mentioned that anybody else can see these demons yet. I don't even know if he does.
Part of the movie, these demons literally just invaded the film world and started disrupting the activities of the characters and the plot and the script and everything. But what I noticed was that when I looked around at the audience in the theater, no one else noticed what the demons were doing, or that they even...
Nobody else noticed the demons. Huh? Just this guy. He's the only one who noticed the demons. This, after 6 weeks of homosexual perversion, he calls it. But he actually had a lot of fun, I betcha.
Existed. I was the only one who could see what was really going on spiritually. Everyone else was completely blind.
Spiritually? Oh, red flag.
Blind to it. They just thought the movie was going on as planned. When I realized that no one else noticed what was going on, I bowed my head in prayer in this dream, and I began praying up a storm, hoping that the Lord would clean up.
Praying up a storm? Did he say praying up a storm? No, he didn't say praying up a storm, did he? No, he couldn't have. Okay, I'll just concede that I misheard that.
Up whatever I was watching on the screen. And in dream time, I probably prayed for about an hour. I look up on the theater screen to see if I made any progress. I look up and the screen is full of demons. There are at least 2
So he prays up a storm and he looks up at the screen and now it's even more demons.
Dozen demons running around.
2,000 demons
around on screen, and by this time it became so graphic and so violent. Like
2,000 demons running around on screen, graphic, violent, spiritual. Nobody else can see it. Only this guy.
For example, one of the characters of this movie that I was watching was a little girl, maybe about 12 years of age. And I remember distinctly seeing one of the little imps ran over to her, grabbed her by the hair, shoved her head into a toilet, and began drowning her, quite violently, just shoving her head into a toilet and drowning her. I know that's graphic, but I just want to give you an idea of how disruptive and how disturbing this whole sight was to me. This scene of Bedlam just unfolding in front of my eyes. So in horror, I'm watching this and I stand up and I point my finger at the screen and I shout at the top of my lungs, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ. And at that moment I woke up. And as soon as I opened my eyes that morning, the Lord spoke to me. He said, "Why have you been filling your mind with filth?" And then finally...
The Lord spoke to me and asked me why I have been filling my mind with filth. I'm sorry, but this is just... this is great.
It dawned on me that it was that movie that began this whole joyride. And was the cause of all of this turmoil that I've been going through this whole month. All this torture, all this embarrassment, this humiliation, not knowing what was going on. My mind's a complete wreck. My heart just a total wreck. And so I repented. And I realized...
Ooh, he repented? No, what did he do? Did he cut his dick off? Like, how do you repent? If you've been having homosexual sex for 6 weeks and you don't know why, because the demons from the movie are in your head, and somehow you found yourself having a good time where you really thought you couldn't or wouldn't. Well, explain yourself. Just carry on.
Realize this isn't a joke. The Lord told me that this is what His people are doing all over the world, putting one foot in the world and one foot in Him, so to speak, and just engaging in the trash and the filth that the world is issuing out for the purpose of entertaining other people with nonsense and things that aren't of substance, of no profit, vanity. And people are still enjoying themselves with these things that the world is pumping out. And the Lord was saying, He was lamenting and grieving over just the lukewarm state of His people. So I got on my face and I cast out the demon that had entered me.
I got on my face and I cast out the demon that had entered me. When you're on your face, the only way the demon can be cast out of you or exit from you is through your ass, right?
And it had been controlling my life for that whole month. I felt it leave my stomach with a quite forceful jerk.
No, it wasn't your stomach.
And it was just a simple self-deliverance prayer. Maybe 5 seconds.
He shit his pants.
And I immediately received peace, received cleansing, no homosexual thoughts or thoughts about vampires, for that matter, ever entered my head again. And I learned my lesson. I learned it really well. And the Lord has been careful to maintain me and remind me of just what the world offers if you put your foot into that stuff and you absorb the trash and the filth that the world is offering you. I just wanted to testify, and I really hope, honestly, that, to be honest, I hope that you took a fright from this, if you're a Christian, and if you're still watching the things of the world, reading the things of the world, playing the things of the world. I really hope that it gave you a fright, and it dawned on you through watching this video.
This guy's trying to give people a fright.
That this isn't a joke, this isn't a game, that the things of the world have the spirit of the world in them. And if you allow yourself to absorb the sin and the perversion of popular media, you may very well get possessed by demons.
You may very well get possessed by demons.
And because that's really all that's in those movies, it's just, and the books are just packed with demons.
See? The books, the movies, just packed with demons. I mean, if you go and you watch a movie in a movie theater filled with people, you'll see demons. You'll see lots of demons. You can pray as much as you want, and more demons will come, and they'll jump right into you and turn you gay. But nobody else will see this, just you.
That's really all it is. I don't know if you think that your entertainment is more worth it to you than peace of mind, soundness of mind, and your eternal seat in heaven. But
your eternal seat in heaven. Looking forward to that, huh?
If it isn't, and you really want to see the kingdom of God, then separate yourself from the world and keep away from secular media. Don't flirt with it.
Don't flirt with secular media. Stay away.
Because if you decide that you want to have part or portion in popular media, popular culture, you're going to get slimed. And there's nothing funny about it. Be pure, be clean, and the Lord will keep you. And He will give you substance and joy. And you'll find that if you have Jesus in your life, you don't need to be entertained, much less by the filth and the perversions and the crookedness of the world. May the grace of the Lord Jesus be with every one of you.
Oh, wasn't that cute? All right. Wasn't that something? Jeez, this guy's just... amazingly pisses me right off. Right, so now that's not the end of it, but I just want to ask you, dear audience, gay or not gay? Do write in anytime. Leave your comment below if you happen to watch this later on, other than right now. But that's not all, because after I listened to this, or watch, in this case, I was watching him give this testimony. So I responded. I wrote a response to the video, and what I did, just in case, this guy, for some reason or other, takes down his video and deletes everything. I have it all on my local drive. So we went into a little bit of a discussion. Firstly, let me start running something that. There you go. So that's his on YouTube. Hello, that's his avatar and his little, I guess, his title. No, he's All for Christ, the TheAllForXMan, and we started a little back and forth. Oh, yes, I responded. So this is kind of how it went. Oh, not like that. Oh yeah, there we go. So that's basically his the title of the video, what it's about. And I was in there as with my other name, which is Ask an Atheist, which is why you see the satanic symbol. That's my new satanic me. All right, so then I replied. I said, "You're gay, dude. I hope you accept who you are because it's okay." And he went and actually replied, "I am certainly not gay. I'm not sexually or romantically attracted to men in the least, and I haven't experienced any such feelings in 3 years. And before October 2013, I hadn't experienced any such feelings in my whole life. They only lasted for that month, and they were confined actually only to one person." Only to one person. Hold on, let me go grab that particular graphic so it doesn't slide away from us. Just give me 1 second here, please. Only two. All right. Sorry for this, but I didn't realize that image was going to. Okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just change it. I'll just add another image. Hold on a second. Give me 1 moment, please. Image, good enough. All right. So he brings up. Yes, that's the one. All right. So what I can do is I can close that, I can make sure that everybody can see. All right, there he goes. So I said to him, "You're gay, dude. I hope you accept who you are." Because okay, he says, "I'm certainly not." Then he goes about his these experience feelings. They only lasted for that month, and they were confined actually only to one person. But you're welcome to believe whatever you like. You evidently don't understand what it even means to be gay. And worse still, you evidently have no understanding as to how demons and demonic possession work. Even so, although you wouldn't receive it, may the grace of the Lord be with you. Well, I mean, thank you, and all that. So this is the guy, right? But it didn't end there. There was more. There was the conversation, and I just had to... I kind of screenshotted it. Screenshot it? I don't know. That was the first one. So we there was a... Where bloody hell, there it is. So then, after that, we said this. So then you remember he said demon. I don't know about demons and possessions and all this kind of stuff. He says. So I wrote back and I said, demons and demonic possessions are just silly human concepts. They do not exist in the real world. God, as well, a human concept. So who are you trying to kid? And so he replies back. You are not arguing from any information you have, but from a lack of information. You are arguing from ignorance. I am coming from 21 years of experience and empirical evidence of both demons and God. Empirical evidence, huh? But I can offer you something better than evidence. I can simply tell you exactly what to do to get your own proof for yourself. If you don't go to Jesus yourself and follow him, you are setting yourself up to be condemned on Judgment Day because you didn't obey him. Then you will have sufficient proof. But then you won't be getting any mercy that day. If you go find your proof now, you'll have a much better chance. What a friendly fellow. The means of finding the truth are right in front of you, and you just refuse to use them. Jesus himself told us how to find him. Did you hear what he said? Then you will have sufficient proof, but then you won't be getting any mercy that day, this Judgment Day. He's so sure of himself. Until you show willingness to proceed with that, I won't try to help you further or give you any more information. You are walking down an extremely foolish road that will lead to nothing but severe disappointment for you in the end. I'll leave you to weigh all that out for yourself. What do you think of that? I'm not sure if I even wrote a reply to that. Let me just double check. What was that, a 3, a 2? There was a 2. Oh, yeah, there's a 3. All right. Oh, I suppose I better do that. Right, there you go. Okay, so what did I say to him after that? I said, all for Christ, the all-for-X-Man. Just give it up. It's no use. If you are seriously convinced that demons and Jesuses and gods actually exist, then you are the one being heavily fooled. All gods are imaginary. The supernatural is imaginary. Spirituality is imaginary. You claim you have empirical evidence, yet you refuse to present it. You are fooling yourself if you believe that you are... grammatical error. You are fooling yourself if you believe that you actually have some sort of connection to your imaginary sky daddy. Here's a hint. You also make a fool of yourself when you suggest to an atheist to go and find Jesus themselves. Jesus is a myth, and to a large extent that is why Christians, to us, come across as batshit crazy. And to that, let me see if there was any reply. Yeah, to that, he said, oh, there were other people. Yeah. Okay, that was the end of it with me. But then, after all mine were done, underneath there were more from before, because this had come out quite a while ago, this video. So Stephen Corey says, "You'd assault yourself in bed, dude. Welcome to reality." So for some reason or other, I guess it could be that All for Christ kind of discovered masturbation and gay porn or something for 6 weeks. That's probably what it is. But oh, and then Tony says, so even cartoons are bad to watch? Now, what does Mr. Old Dude say? Mr. All for Christ says, it's not about whether it's a cartoon or whether it's reality TV. It's about whether or not it points to Jesus and glorifies him. The Lord is waiting eagerly to answer you himself and wants you to ask him about your question in prayer. So let him lead you. He'll show you the whole truth. May the grace of the Lord Jesus be with you. Da-da-da-da. Hey, Grace. Hey, St. Tommy. Hope you're watching this, because Grace comes into this here. Hope you've got something to say about this. But what really I thought was the funniest thing was Know the Truth left a comment. He says, I'm at Taco Bell and I'm literally laughing my ass off right now. Seriously. I can't stop laughing. No kidding. So anyway, that's pretty much the deal with this All for Christ guy, and that was the purpose of this hangout. Oh, I shouldn't even say hangout. I should say this YouTube, because the hangouts seem to be. I don't even know if there's anyone in my hangout. No one arrived. Okay. If you have anything to say, any comments, I'll just quickly check the YouTube feed. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thanks again. I'm going to now figure out how to stop this, because I'm not 100% sure. Oh, I do know how. Today is the 30th of September 2016.